What's going on, watch fans? Welcome back to Forward Momentum. As always, I am your host, Todd Searle. I am joined by a very special guest today, someone who I met at Geneva Watch Days 2023. I was very lucky to run into him speaking to a mutual friend. He is, of course, Benoît Mintiens, the founder of Ressence. He is an incredible design force in the industry, and no one tells time like Ressence does. I'm really looking forward to getting into his story, learning more about his background, and being able to understand a little bit more about what Ressence stands for in the independent watchmaking space. Without further ado, Benoît, welcome to the show.
Welcome. Thank you very much. Hello, everyone.
Thanks for being here, and thanks for doing this. It was such a pleasure to meet you at Geneva Watch Days. And I really mean it. It was my first opportunity to interact with Ressence in person. And the feel of the watches is such a natural feeling. And it feels like such an organic shape. And I want to come on to the design part of this. But I'm curious, how did you get started with watchmaking? What was your road to becoming a watchmaker or a watch designer?
Yeah, actually, I don't have a watchmaker background. My background is I was a designer. I worked as an industrial designer, as a consultant for a consultancy here in Belgium. We are based in Belgium. Before I got into watchmaking, but it explains a lot, and it explains a lot about why Ressence watches are completely different than what you're used to in the world of watchmaking. It explains also the why the products are as they are. You were talking about maybe the very tactile aspect of our products. It's all related, and it's all coming from that background that I have and that I apply to watchmaking basically. But I would have applied it to a tram too. It is a very it's a methodology that you have that you to apply to a product, and in this case it's a watch.
Had watches always fascinated you, or was there something as you were going through your work as a designer that caught your attention?
Yes. The nice thing about watches, and the reason why I am attracted to watches, is because they are so holistic in their creative approach. You have to design a lot of things when it comes to watches, and usually a lot more than most products have. Everyone will understand that the aesthetics are important for a watch. Well, that's a creative dimension that you have to have. But there is also the ergonomics of the watch. How do you read the time? How can you improve that? How can you do that in a different way? There is the technology behind it. What are the mechanics that you need to develop to obtain a certain ergonomic aspect? There is the pricing. There is the brand. You have to design the brand. There was no Ressence before, so just the name. You have to imagine the name, the logo, the whole environment around the brand. These are, and I can go on and on because a watch brand has so many dimensions, and that is the first thing that is interesting, that you can express your creativity in all these fields. But more important is to do that in a coherent way, so that the price and the looks and the function and the everything is related, and that it's one new reality. And that's where I try to end and to land with Ressence, is to offer a new reality in watchmaking, driven by this logics that are the ones that I learned during my career as a designer.
Amazing. I think that really does shine through in the overall design and the overall brand feel. It feels very cohesive. It feels very connected. It feels very, again, to use the word organic or natural, it feels like it's sort of always been there. So congratulations to you and your team, because it really does feel cohesive, where some brands do feel a bit more disjointed. So what were some of the main things that you designed previously? You had mentioned trams. I think looking behind you, there's airplanes. I think you've got a sort of broad reach in terms of your design background.
I didn't do that one, unfortunately. I'm a bit too young for that. But yes, no. And towards the end, I worked for interior of planes, cabin interiors. But the nice thing about that company was that it was a generalist as a designer, and so we went from very simple products to a lot very complex products. High-speed trains is something we did quite often, actually, for such a small organization. But I also did petrol stations, and I did medical devices for oncology treatment, and I did fast-moving consumer goods for candies, and I did fire extinguishers and shotguns, and it goes a very wide range. But the logic behind is always the same. It's always this logic of trying to come up with a product that fits your client. Because as an industrial designer, your return on investment, don't ask you to make something nice. They want you to design something that will sell better than before, or sell cheaper than before, or less expensive. So it's not very sexy sometimes. It's sometimes the questions are very, very hard. It's like, now it costs so much, how do you make it cheaper? And it should sell more. So what do you do as a designer? You're just an investment for your client. So yes, it is a very structuring element in the way I approach it. And well, the nice thing was that we went from furniture design to, well, it was very, very wide, and that was a nice goal.
Yeah, absolutely. And do you think that broad base of design gave you the opportunity to look at watches with fresh eyes? Because obviously, Ressence is so different in terms of the time telling and the mechanism from other brands. Do you think that wide design base gave you the opportunity to look at the watch with a very new set of eyes?
Yes, and the fact that I wasn't biased. When you are a watchmaker, you've never seen something else than what is existing. But if you're not, you look at it from a very naive, maybe, or maybe very fresh, whatever you call it, but a very different watch at it. Sometimes I try to explain the approach by saying that if there was no watchmaking, would there be no watchmaking? And you would ask someone, design a mechanical watch today, how would it look like with the context that we live in? I always hope that the answer is Ressence. I can only talk for myself, but this is really the way we look at it. Like, we are a 21st century company. We don't look in the rear view mirror like many do. We look ahead, or at least today. So what is available? What is around us? What surrounds us? What are the products that come out today? And how can we make a meaningful proposition within the context of today on a mechanical watch? So that's really what we try to do with Ressence, and the result is what you see.
Absolutely. And the result is stunning. As I said, I got to get hands-on with the watches at Geneva Watch Days 2023. It was my first time really being hands-on with the watches. And I was sort of stunned by just the flow and the feel of the watches and the case and how organic the whole watch feels. It really has sort of in some ways, speaking in particular about your new release, the Type 3 Eucalyptus, the Type 3 EE, it really does, because of the color, it feels sort of like a river stone, like a pebble that you might take out of a riverbed, and it has that sort of soft feeling. How does that design process work? How do you kind of come to those shapes? And could you walk us through sort of the design of, did you come up with the shape first? Was it the movement? From a design standpoint, how did the design phases work?
The shape, it's a bit philosophical, but you will understand. We as humans are basically still cavemen in our brains. The evolution went faster than our brain evolution, the evolution in our brains. And as a human being, we feel more empathic, is that English, towards organic objects than towards geometrical objects. Because a geometrical object does not exist in nature. Everything that you see that is created by nature is organic. So as a animal, I would say, a brain from an animal, we will always feel more reassured towards something organic than towards something geometrical. And when it comes to us, and let's not forget, a watch is something you wear on you. It's like your glasses. So it's part of you. It's part of your identity. So if you create a product that is from a haptic and a emotional standpoint very close to what you feel reassured with, and you start wearing it as being part of you, you better use the language of forms of you as a human being or as a creature. And if I take the example of glasses are very. Would you wear geometrical glasses? It doesn't fit you. You see that there is an unbalance between what the glasses stand for. Would they be geometrical, and you as a body on which they are attached? That's why glasses are always organic. Even when they're round, they're not round. They're never round, perfectly circles, because it doesn't fit you. And that's the same what I try to apply on a watch. If you make a watch geometrical, it will always feel like a technical thing on your wrist. What is, for some cases, is perfect. There are brands that really want to express this tool feel about their products, and that's fine. But when you ask Ressence, we will look at it from a different standpoint. We will say, okay, let's make something that feels natural on you. And it has a function, it gives the time, but it also feels natural. It feels part of you. And this is really why a Ressence dial is not flat. It's always a curved surface, because you have more empathy for that type of shape than a geometrical flat dial, because I think every watch, or nearly, in the world has a flat dial, because it's industrially easier to make. Just that. It's just machines that define the shape of our watches mostly. And it's not us as a designer that do it. It's the machine and the cost of making something that defines the shape of the watches that you sell, that most people buy in the shops. It's just the machine that has defined it. Whereas we say, well, this is not a perfect shape. We should make it more organic. And that is why the dial of a Ressence is not flat. It's curved, like any creature in this world.
Amazing.
It's a bit philosophical. I'm sorry.
No. I absolutely love the design philosophy. I love hearing about the design philosophy and the philosophy of how you make a watch. And I think it's kind of a natural extension to go into, when you looked at the watch and you said you're a 21st century company and a 21st century product. When you looked at the watch, you took away the crown, the hands, and you used oil as the basis for the interior of the case. How did those what stood out to you about those three pieces that seemed sort of anachronistic or not intuitive for a modern watch?
Well, the crown is a very bad invention. And by the way, it was invented in 1848, if I'm not wrong. And since everyone thought that's it, it's perfect, we will not change it. It's as if this was the reality, and it was for always like that. What of course is not enough. You can always evolve. You can always improve. You can always find new ways to do something. And a crown is or too big, and then it hurts, or you make it smaller because then it doesn't hurt, but then you can't use it. So there is always this dilemma with the crown. It is a typical engineer invention. When you ask a designer, he will look at it from a different point of view, and he will say, okay, let's not adapt the person to the product, but let's adapt the product to the person. And that is why there's not a small little crown on it, because it means that you need to adapt to the bad design and the bad conceptual thinking of an engineer about just finding a solution for his problem, but not for the problem of the person that will wear the watch. So typically there, if you ask me about the crown, that's the reason why.
Yeah. It's interesting. I wasn't sure how that would feel on the wrist without having a crown. I think you're one of 2 watch brands that I know of that don't have a crown in their watches. And I wasn't sure how it would feel, but it really does feel like a very natural object on your wrist. It feels like a good extension.
There are many people that don't even see there's no crown. They are not aware of it. It's only when you tell them, look, there's no crown. Oh, yeah. It's something that sticks out for nothing. It's really an ugly thing. Why would you have it? It's just a functional thing. It's as if your screwdriver is always on a product.
Yeah.
It doesn't fit well, you know?
Yeah.
But okay, the real reason behind it is a more logics that is a bit different in there. So we try to make products that adapt to you and not the opposite.
Yeah, it's interesting because I speak to so many watchmakers who are amazing at the deep and technical side of watchmaking, who come to watchmaking and do these incredible innovative movements, yet they still have a crown. They still sort of rely on what you might consider sort of a very traditional watch shape. And so it's really interesting to speak to a industrial designer who came to watchmaking. And you aren't a trained watchmaker, correct? Pardon the assumption, but okay. So I'm curious to hear from you how you, as an independent brand and as an industrial designer, how do you define independent watchmaking? You know, we've spoken about your philosophy on watchmaking. I'm curious about your sort of definition of independent watchmaking, and looking, obviously you've looked to the history of watchmaking. Who are some of those watchmakers who influenced you, or who you looked at from a design perspective and said, wow, that's cool. How can we learn from these elements?
Well, on your first question, I think that you could look at it as if we are cooks, that we have ingredients, and we as independent watchmakers, we have these basic ingredients that everyone's using, like a case and a glass and a dial and a hands and whatever. But we also have other ingredients that we can put in there or not, or change the proportions to come up with something new, with a dish that smells differently, or that tastes differently, or that looks different. I think that is the reason why we can do this as independent watchmakers, is that we take most of the basic ingredients, because if we don't do that, you will not recognize it as a hamburger, for example. If you don't put the bun and you don't put the hamburger, well, what do you have? So these things are the basics. And then you can add salad or ketchup or whatever, or only mustard, whatever. You can try to play around and create new products around that, and put fish instead of meat, but it's still a hamburger. So, or maybe not. That's up to you to decide. But so we and then there is, of course, the watchmaker. So there's independent, and then there's watchmaker. The watchmaker, for me, I think what is very striking in our business is that we still make products and there are not many businesses like that, where we think 20, 25, 30, 50 years, where we say, well, a good product should still be good in 20 years. Who does that today? There's no business there's not many businesses where you can have that. Someone told me, yes, maybe music instruments is an example, but they make the same instruments since ever. We as independent watchmakers, we try to do something new. We try to create something new, like a little bit like a cook that takes the same ingredients, but tries to make something new and more contemporary out of that. So it's for me, that's, and your second question about other watchmakers, I think I have a lot of respect for most of my colleagues, I have to say, because I know where they go through, because I go through it. And it's really not easy. The amount of obstacles that you get as a small company trying to compete with these very large corporations, because a customer, when he goes in the store, he doesn't care if the company is 10 people big or 5,000. It's not his problem, but he expects from you to deliver the same service, the same quality, but with a lot less people and a lot less time, in a product that is a lot more complex. So we are compared to something that is uncomparable. It's normal, it's natural, but it's not so simple for us. Our lives are not as simple as, I would say, the product manager of a large group that makes the same products already 30 years, and then he says, "Oh, we're going to do a re-edition," and we go again for 30 years, exactly the same product. And there is nothing innovative on that product. It's exactly the same since 60 years. So, and we come up every year with new concepts, with completely new ideas, things that were never done before, and a customer will expect exactly the same from the two companies, or the two brands, the two products that are in the store. So I have a lot of respect for most of my colleagues, because they all have this difficulty in trying to come up with something very, very innovative that sometimes was never done before, but then are compared to brands that do the same already for a long time. So for me, it is a it's not a simple thing. I like it. It's not. I'm not complaining, but it is sometimes. Sometimes people are complaining about something really futile, because you say yes, but you're talking about 0.01% here. You don't see the whole thing, Okay, that's a bit frustrating thing sometimes.
So just going off of that, what has been the biggest challenge that you have faced? Was it the initial concept and development and actually producing the first watch, or has it gone beyond there? Are there new challenges every year? And as you look to the future to push boundaries, do you find more challenges now than you did at the start?
No, I think the challenges are different. For sure, the company grows, the organization grows, so there are also challenges related to the organization that weren't there 10 years ago. But still, when I design a new product that we will launch in the future, I still have fights with subcontractors. I still have fights with R&D guys that want to change everything because it has been done always like that. That you try to convince them, no, I don't want it like that. I want it like this. Oh yeah, but then Benoît, you don't know what you're doing. This is not going to work, And I never know one has done that before. Are you sure? It's your risk then. It's not my problem. It's your problem. All these discussions, you still have them. It will always be like that. So no, it's there are more, the type of challenges become wider, but yes, I'm not alone anymore also. So I have many colleagues that help me in that. It's somehow it's also easier. So depends a bit how you look at it and about the problem.
Yeah. And currently what is the timeline to bring a new Ressence product to market look like? How long are you working on a product before it's released?
I don't work so long because I've been trained as a consultant to count my time when I work, because every minute is a billable minute as a consultant. So I have learned to work fast. I have learned to think quickly and to take decisions quickly, because my client would not pay for it if I would not. But once you're done, then starts the waiting, because then it goes to the development companies. We don't do that anymore ourselves. We have companies in Switzerland that take over the 3D files that we make from each watch, and they start to create production files of that, and they do simulations in different ways, in torsions and things. It's a bit technical, but they do many simulations to make sure that let's say digitally the watch is good, and then we start the production, and then the molds and all the. So it really takes a lot of time. I think that is one of the weaknesses of the industry, is that it's this is something that should improve. It will not, because by now I know how they are structured and how they think. But I think that would watchmaking be a real industry with real competition like most industries, it wouldn't take so long. But okay. I've seen many industries by being an industrial designer, so I've never seen something like that. So it's really slow.
Could it change with additive manufacturing and 3D printing? Do you think there's anything that could change it in the future?
I've used it a lot, 3D printing and all these techniques, but the scale of watchmaking and the precision that requires watchmaking is still, it's not possible still to use it, and it's too expensive. Let's say 10 years ago, everyone thought, oh, 3D printing is going to be the future, like AI today. So everyone was buying stocks of 3D printing companies. But then, yeah, you discover that actually your part costs like 50 times more, and it's not going faster. Machines are super slow to produce, and in the end, everyone forgot about 3D printing. So I think the biggest challenge is the cost. The cost of 3D printing is too high because of time, because of precision. So that I don't believe we will soon see standard components made out of 3D printers, because if they were, they will be very expensive to make, because they will be so slow to make, to get that finesse that you need, if we can, and I'm not sure we can.
And then you still have to have a human to finish that component, clean it up, remove any flashings or anything else from the product itself. So it's just an additive cost at that point.
For our industry, I don't see it come really quickly. Not yet. We make prototypes. I do it all the time. Of all the watches that I made 3D prints of it. But it's the outside. I cannot make a 3D print of an axle. That's not possible. It's just too fine, not too strong enough.
And that 3D print of the case just gives you the opportunity to see it, to test it, to play with ideas in terms of design and shapes. And
yeah, you wear it, you see the proportions in real, because on a screen you see, okay, I've been working on 3D modeling programs, let's say all my career. So I start to see what I see there is usually what I see when it's real, but then it's on your wrist. The size, the scale of something is very hard to perceive on a screen. So it's always a step that you need to do when you finished, to really make it in 3D, print it in 3D, put it on your wrist and see how it feels. It's a super important step in the process.
yeah. And you've spoken a little bit about this, but I'm curious what it's like to be a watchmaker and designer living in Antwerp and working in Switzerland. Do you do a lot of travel back and forth, or do you have a good team of suppliers that you work with now, where you feel pretty confident just over internet?
When I'm a mean boy, I say you can see further, you can look further when you're in Antwerp, because in Switzerland they have mountains. But yes, for sure, everything is produced in Switzerland. I think 99.9% of our components are produced in Switzerland. There's maybe the straps that we make in Italy and things like that. So very, very few components are not made in Switzerland. The reason is because the industry is there, the machines are there, the knowledge is there. And it's not so easy to take that out. There is a whole ecosystem of subcontractors that do a little operation, and it's an industry that is structured in a very specific way. So it's hard to take out. I could say, yes, I will mill the components here because there is a company in Belgium that has the same machines as the manufacturers in Switzerland. But then it needs to finish. It needs to color. It needs to, and all the little steps that you need to have after just the milling. So it's this ecosystem that you have there that is hard to reproduce somewhere else. That's why, for example, Glashütte is one of these environments where you have most of the crafts that you need to make a component around each other. You know, you can walk the street and then you have the guy that does the polishing, then you walk the other street and then you have the guy that does whatever the coloring. So that's how it's organized. It's not very vertical. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and there aren't many industries that are like that, where you walk down the street or you go for a 10-minute walk and you're at the person who does your finishing, the person who does your engraving, and there are very few industries where that is still a possibility. Like I spoke to an engraver who used to work for James Purdy and Sons in London, and he would say that they were. He started with Purdy. He learned sort of their basic engraving patterns, and then he eventually became a subcontractor to them, worked for another company, and he learned from these old master engravers. And it wasn't just shotguns that they were engraving silver or anything else that kind of came their way. And they would do the work, but they would, they were just down the street. They would just sort of walk the guns across the street to them. They'd engrave them and they'd, they'd say, how long can you do this? What do you need done to this? And they'd say, okay, we need 5 days or we need 4 days to do this. And they'd come back. And then eventually he was trusted enough to go out on his own, and he worked from his own home workshop where he developed, all his engraving patterns and stuff. But, it's like probably the only other industry I can think of, like the Swiss watch industry or Glashütte, where those things still happen. There aren't a lot of industries where that's the norm anymore.
Well, there are many industries that use a subcontracting system, but the Swiss industry, the Swiss ecosystem is very, let's say, intertwined, and yeah, you're in it or you're not. It's a very, and they all know each other, and
yeah. And so, as you're based in Belgium, working in Switzerland or working with Switzerland, what really inspired you to start Ressence in 2010? What was the moment that caused you to say, right, it's a watch, that's what we're doing next?
When you are in the consultancy business, you have one big problem. You are in an hour economy, and what you create, your brain, the juice of your brain, is used only once, because you create something, you sell it to a customer, you get X amount of money because you are supposed to think 5 days, so you get money for 5 days thinking, and that's it. And then you go to another one, and you have to find a new customer. And my boss, my former boss, was at a certain point. He was 65. He was thinking of retiring, and he couldn't sell his business. Nobody wants to buy it. He has been working like 30 years like crazy to build this company. Nobody wants to buy it. It has no value. And even though it had a very good name, still it has no value, because I don't know. That's a bit the problem with consulting, and it's the problem with many of these types of businesses. And I thought, okay, I know I'm creative, but how can I use this asset in a more recurring way? And that was to create a product where creativity would be a main asset and a main differentiating factor. And well, it turned out it would be watches.
Amazing. That's a very cool story.
Pragmatical approach.
Had you been interested in watches before? Had you paid attention to watches? Was it an ecosystem that you were interested in?
I'm not so much, and maybe that's gonna hurt some people, but I'm not a real watch freak. I'm more a product freak. I like products. I like the way they're designed. I like to analyze how other designers have been through a process and they come up with a result. And see how it was done. And even as a kid, of course, I opened up. Last week I was in a hotel, and another guy in the hotel was one of the inventors. He worked at Xerox, and he was the guy that invented the mouse with the ball. The first mouse. So this guy invented that, and so he told me, and I said, "Wow, that's crazy." And I was really like, okay, so he came up with this idea, and so it is a real nice. I was like, but as a kid, I've been opening these mouses to see how they were made and how. So I explained him. Yes, I remember there was little wheels in there with a little lead measuring the different steps. It was fun. So it is really something you have or you don't, I think. But yes, it's a really important thing, I believe, to really dig into it.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, as you're developing and as you're thinking about the future, what's coming next in or if you can share a little bit, what's your vision for the future of Ressence and the product lines and how you keep evolving the product?
Well, it's not so. I think that we have gone into a path where we have a very functional approach to our products, a very ergonomical approach. What doesn't sound very sexy, but that's what makes the products relevant. Because a product that is not functional is not relevant. A product only gets his relevance through his function. Very simply said, if you can't read the time very well on a watch, is it still a good watch? You could really ask yourself that question. It could be a nice object on your wrist because it shines or something like that, and you want to shine, so you wear something that shines. But what's the basic function here? So you better use something that shines then, instead of having a watch. So I'm just giving a simple example, but you can take that in a wider. So for us, the different developments we're working on are all driven by this functional approach, this ergonomical approach that we really try to go as far as possible in it. And there are new concepts that come out of there. It's that, and then another thing that is very, very important for me when I design a watch is this relationship. You can, when you design a watch, actually what I do is I design the relation to that watch. And I think, okay, you are going to be on the wrist of this person for many years, and every morning this person needs to be happy when he puts you on the wrist. So how do you ensure that? How do you make sure that after 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, he says, well, it was a pleasure to wear this watch. I'm going to buy another one from that same brand. and that is not something that falls out of the sky. That is because you have been thinking of all the different aspects that are influencing the way this person is experienced the product. And if you do that well, and if you do that in a holistic way, you will have let's say, a larger chance that this person that wears your watch and that trusted you in the beginning will be compensated by the experience and will come back to you as a brand and say, okay, yes, I really like the experience. I want more of that same experience. That's what Apple is doing very well. For example, they create an experience. They are designing an interface. They are designing an experience. And if that's nice, but it counts for every product. So the relationship is a very important aspect when you create products, and that's, I think, the two, even though they're related in some way. I think that these two aspects, so the relationship and the functionality, are really the key drivers for us when we design new products. And so the ones that will come, you will see, they will all be thought from that point of view.
I think today it's human-centered design. Is that sort of the base philosophy of your work in design, is thinking about just those human interactions, the daily things that you interact with, and how you ideally would like them to work for you?
I already said the idea of making a product that adapts to you as a human and not the opposite is already a first step. But if we try to make this very simple to explain, and in comparison with other watches, most watch brands have not been created by designers. They have been created by watchmakers. What is a logical consequence of being a watchmaker is to create your watch brand. Well, when you're a watchmaker, your first attention goes to the movement, because that's what will make the difference for you as a watchmaker, because that's your trade, that's your craft. And so you're going to try to make that as good as you can, to maybe being innovative in somehow for that, and create something that is maybe a bit different and works better or longer or whatever, or more precise. And you build a watch around it. So you start with the core, let's say the inside, and you go to the outside. So you grow the watch from the inside. What we do, we start with you. And I say, okay, I want to design the relationship. I design the relationship between you and that watch. So I start with you. And then, so the first thing you design is the outside, because that's where the relationship comes from. That's where the interaction happens. It's not from the inside that happens on the outside of the watch. So you first design the outside, and then you start to dig in and design the different layers that are needed to create that outside. And so we end up with the movement. This is the last thing we think of. Of course, it's not that simple, but let's say, to explain the logics, we go from outside to inside, whereas normally a watch is designed from the inside to the outside. And that explains a lot about the reason why a Ressence watch does not look, does not feel, does not work the same way as a traditional watch, if you could call it like that.
Yeah, absolutely. That makes total sense. And just based on that and your design approach, is there a product that you haven't yet designed that you would love to design, or is there something in your everyday life that you would love to remake?
Well, there's quite some products actually, but then because that was one of the fears I had when I started doing Ressence. So I said, oh no, I'm going to design watches for the rest of my life. This is going to be boring because it's going to be the same all the time. Well, it's not at all, because the creativity you can put in a watch is so wide, so diverse, so variable, that it's really something that every day I'm happy, and of course it's also because we give us the possibility to do it. We have the luxury of having customers that are ready to pay more to have another experience. So that's let's say a luxury, or it's a positive aspect of being in the niche that we are, is that we can express and we can think of technologies that would never be considered by mainstream brands, because way too expensive to develop or to produce, or out of the let's say the standard automatization that they all have when they make watches. It would not fit. So that's, let's say, the creativity we can put in there. For me, it's an everyday joy to do that. And for me, it's still I don't need really to design other things, even though, yes, sometimes I think it would be nice to design whatever, a bike or a motorcycle or whatever, something with wheels. Of course, I thought that's for sure. It has to have wheels.
If you do that, sign me up. Let me know when you're doing that, and include me on the beta testing program, because I'm all in for that. I would love to see an e-bike designed by you. Actually, I think that would be incredible. I would love that. And it would also help me on my commute to work. That would be ideal. And just sort of speaking of watches and products you'd love to design, is there any watch that you'd particularly love to design, or any segment of watches that you'd really love to tackle?
I have to be, no, I think the one that we created is the one I wanted to have. I'm very happy with it. And I think that, yeah, the brand Ressence has potential to go in many directions. And well, we already tried many things with Ressence, some with success, some maybe with less success, depends on how you look at it. And we are still developing new things that are completely new, based on patterns that we take, completely different ways to express the time, or rethink certain aspects of the watch that are seen from a very different perspective, but bring a functionality and a relevance to the product that are, I believe, interesting. We'll see if they don't sell. It will be a bad idea, but for now, it's on paper and on computers, and they accept everything from me. They're very nice with me.
Amazing. And seeing the Type 3 eucalyptus at Geneva Watch Days, can we expect more colorways coming from Ressence in the future?
Yeah, well, actually, it's an evolution you go through. I've been thinking of it. Why do I do color now, and I didn't do colors before? And it was more from I think it comes from the fact that as a young brand, well, you need to establish yourself and to show you're a serious brand. So if you come up with not so serious colors, it doesn't help. I think it comes from there. That's why, and also, let's not forget, Ressence watch, the effect that you obtain by having a dark dial works a lot better. So it also has an ergonomical reason why I did black watches very often, because it's just more easy to read. But I think color comes with more maturity from the brand, and so it allows us to express ourselves through other ways than maybe have the same functionality, but within a more colorful context. It's never bad. I think it's a nice evolution that we have. Doesn't mean we will not do black watches anymore. We will continue doing it, because they are the most pure way to express what we stand for. But well, I'm wearing my eucalyptus every day, and I'm super happy with it. I really like the color, and otherwise I wouldn't have done that color, of course. But it really works because it's such a natural color. It feels so natural, this color. And would it have been fluorescent purple? Well, maybe not. It's not so natural then. So it's also related to that philosophy of trying to have something on you that fits you as a creature.
Yeah, and you'd probably only have 1 to 5 customers for a metallic purple version of the watch, where I think the eucalyptus is a little more sellable, honestly. And it's interesting. It's such a sort of chameleon colorway. Because if you wear it with like a sage green or like a green linen jacket, it takes on very green hues. And if you wear it with navy blue, it becomes a little more gray. So it has this sort of shifting ability that makes it a very unique colorway that's very easy to wear.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's nice that you say that, because it's indeed the experience that you get by wearing it. Every moment in the day, the color is a bit, well, you experience it a bit different. Sometimes it's warm, sometimes it's cold, sometimes it's, in the morning when it's in my bathroom, the watch looks gray in the morning. I don't know why. It comes from the light. I don't know, but it looks like I have a gray watch on in my bathroom. But then when I wear it, yeah, it's green. Today is green. But it's really something that it's a nice color, actually. It's a really versatile color. It fits with many things. Also, the inside of the watch, if you look at it in detail, there is purple. There's pink. There is yellow. There's blue inside. So we try to mix many different tones within that same watch, and so yes, I think it works. Okay, we'll see the sales.
Yeah, I think it works really well. And I think the color scheme overall really comes together nicely in a beautiful palette. So, congratulations to you on the new release. I think it's great. And if you haven't had the chance to put one on your wrist, for those of you listening, I'd really recommend it because it's different. And it's such a natural feeling object that you can't help but wear it and notice that there's something unique about it and that it feels natural.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Benoît, talking about just the future of Ressence and where you're going, are you thinking about sort of succession planning with Ressence? Obviously, you've been at this for 13 years. You're still a very young guy. You're not going anywhere. But I'm curious, what do you what are you thinking about for the future of the brand? What's your sort of I guess also what's the overall goal with the brand as you grow and continue to build amazing watches?
I would like to evolve as being another interesting and rethought alternative to watchmaking, and with a different perspective on watchmaking, so that watchmaking can be something else than what you know. Um, Seen from that perspective, I would like to grow the brand and offer, I would say, a variety of products within that philosophy, that and appeal to an audience that can go from people that are maybe buying a watch for the style, but also people that buy it for the function, people that buy it because it's futuristic, people that buy it because it's whatever. So to to develop a portfolio of products that will create a universe. I don't know how to call it differently, but a universe where the operating system is not the same as what you know from other brands or other industry or other companies. So the logics that we have, the religion that we have, is not the same. We have another way of approaching it. We have another way of looking at things. And to create a portfolio of products and a brand environment, an aspirational brand environment that you can relate to, and that is logical and that is coherent between all the different aspects of the brand. Of course, that's where I want to bring the brand. It's a long journey. You don't do that. You don't do that immediately. This is an evolution that we go through as a brand, and I think most brands try to, of course, achieve that, because that's in the end the goal that you need to have as a brand, is to have that universe that you create for yourself and that you create, of course, for your customers, that can relate to it and that can be work aspirational for the people that wear your products. So yeah, that's where I try to. That's what I try to develop through the portfolio of products, but also through the brand, through the communication that we have, all the little touch points that you could have. Of course. We're a young company. We're not such a big company yet. So we still need to do a lot of things, but it's a step-by-step approach. Will take some time. It's no problem. We're there. I'm not planning my succession yet, so I have time. I have time to work on that.
Yeah, absolutely. No, that that's an evolution that makes sense from in just from seeing the products, from feeling the products. It's an evolution that makes sense that there are other products that you would want to make that are in the ecosystem of Ressence. And I can hazard guesses at what those might be, and I can sort of think of objects that might become part of that universe. And so personally, I'm very curious to see where you go with Ressence, but a sincere congratulations to you on 13 years and building just amazingly unique watches that tell time like nothing else in the market. Genuinely, they're very cool. And if you haven't had the chance to look at them, please find your local retailer and go take a look. We will link to the Ressence site in the show notes, so you can take a look, find your local retailer, and see what all is on offer with Ressence. And Benoît, I want to be conscientious of your time here. I've got 3 remaining questions for you. And the first one is do you feel a need to protect watchmaking? I know you're not a watchmaker, but I'm curious, since you're in the business and in the industry.
Super important. Of course, I think that first, sometimes I have the feeling I need to protect the industry from ourselves. I sometimes have the feeling that certain choices that are made by certain players in the industry are not maybe the right ones, or maybe short-term driven or opportunistic driven. So sometimes I regret that. I believe that we should, as an industry, make sure that you appeal and you are aspirational to a young generation. We could not all want to have to wear the watch of our fathers, of our grandfathers, because certain brands are into that, but we are not at all. We want the opposite. We want you to wear a watch that your father will never wear, because he could not, for a simple reason, it was not there. And so, but to appeal to these people, you need to accept that they have been wearing an Apple Watch, because that's a very important step to get used to the fact that you have something on your wrist that provides you a certain function, and that's just there on your wrist. It's there, and you don't have to take it out of your pocket or something. No, it's there. And grow from there. Maybe you have a swatch or whatever. It's perfect for me, as long as people are feeling better by wearing something on their wrist that provides them a certain function, that provides them, and a function can be social status. Let's be clear here. Should not always be giving time exactly to the microsecond. Could perfectly be like, I just feel better. I just feel nicer with it. I feel stronger. I feel more reassuring by wearing this than if I would not have it. So, but as an industry, you should incarnate that, and have a very respectful and humble approach towards your customers. So yes, protecting my industry is something. I do some fights with certain organizations in the industry, and sometimes I'm very alone. And I feel very alone, but I do it because I sometimes believe that some organizations in the industry take wrong decisions or are a bit corrupt or whatever. It depends on the subject and on the topic, but yeah, I really think we should, as an industry, be impeccable, because let's not forget, you don't need a watch. It's something that is just there for pleasure. And for feeling better or functional. Yes, we try, of course, to make it as good as we can. But it's an important thing. It's a good question, by the way.
Absolutely. Thank you. So you may have already covered this question, but I'm curious to hear your thoughts on this. In a sentence or so, what's one thing that you wish people knew about watchmaking or the watch industry?
I sometimes say to people, when you are on a fair, and you've been to fairs, so you have seen many watches there. When you go in a store where you can buy watches, you think, oh yeah, oh nice watch, this watch, and that. Nobody really realizes what a miracle you have in front of you every time. It's just amazing the amount of precision that goes in each watch to make it tick. Every tick is exactly the same as the previous tick, from a mechanical system that is so small and so light that it can be influenced just by blowing on it. It will not work anymore. So fragile it is, and still they're all there and all ticking, and it seems so obvious to most people, but you should really think these are all little miracles. Each of them is a miracle, expensive or not, complicated or not. They're all little miracles, and sometimes we forget that because we're used to mass production. We're used to mass things. Everything's the same and everything, but it's people. It's humans that assemble them. It's not machines. Independent watchmaking is not assembled by machines, and very often even the components are not made by machines, or maybe partially, but never completely. So there are so many little hands. There are so many souls involved in each watch. That I really think that sometimes salespeople don't communicate the magical element, the wonder that is there in their stores, all the people that were involved in making sure that the product would work perfectly. It's not so obvious if you think about it.
That might be the best answer I've ever gotten to that question. That was fantastic. I've been trying to convey that to people for years, and in all my writing, and I don't think I've ever said it that well. So that was fantastic. That was amazing. and on that note, that's a really good spot to end here. But Benoît, thank you so much for coming on the show today. I really appreciate it. This has been a really great conversation. It's been amazing to see a little bit of insight into your universe and into what Ressence does on a daily basis. The last question I have for you is, where can people find you?
On our website, you can find us. There's a button, and then you go there and you see all the retailers that have supported us and take in a brand like Ressence and believe in it. And hopefully they will share that passion that they had when the sparkles that they had when they took in the brand, and share it with you guys by showing you the product, and hopefully sell it to you, so that you become someone that wears a Ressence. Of course, if you come to Antwerp, you're always welcome. Of course, we can go and drink a little coffee. You're always welcome.
That sounds great. I will take you up on that offer when I'm next in Antwerp. So I'm looking forward to seeing you again. And thank you again for being on the show today. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you, Todd. Thank you. Bye.
Have a great day. Thank you.
Bye.